today because it just didn't make sense. And I saved about 45 minutes by doing it.
Alrighty, I have switched the presenter to Drew. Scott, I believe you got the recording ready to go.
Yeah, I've already got it going.
And I am about to click the Start Broadcast button.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to our Wednesday MusicMaster for Windows Genius Workshop webinar. It's our little Wednesday afternoon party we have here. Thank you everyone for coming in again this week. On tap, we're going to do an hour today from 1 to 2 here with Drew Bennett. He'll be focusing on setting up weekend specials. It's a topic we get a lot of calls about, so we've decided to feature it as a special 1-hour webinar today. If there's an area of interest that you wish for us to cover, by all means send an email to jill@mmwin.com, Jill Sorensen, and let her know, and maybe we can create a topic around that to fill up an hour's space. Once again, thank you for coming today. If you want to look ahead to the next couple of sessions, they're on mmwin.com under webinars. Next week it's going to be using audio files in MusicMaster, and the following week on the 22nd, how to evaluate and inherit a database. So if you want to see those, make sure you go in there and sign up on mmwin.com. So let's get started with weekend specials. The lovely and talented Drew Bennett, ladies and gentlemen.
So kind. Thank you very much. Hey guys, glad that you could join us today, and I appreciate you sitting in for this hour and this episode of our webinars. This one is going to cover ways to execute themed weekends within MusicMaster. The techniques that I'm going to describe can be put to other uses, when you're scheduling with MusicMaster. But I'm going to cover the techniques in reference to themed weekends because it's a little easier to understand in that way. And I know many of us are programming stations that do run specialty programming like this. And as Mark said, we get a lot of phone calls about this, especially around holidays. Memorial Day is coming up. We've got the 4th of July. And several others coming out throughout the summer. So lots of good ideas for you. We're going to talk about some things that you can do to work along with your sales staff to generate some revenue and do some creative things with your radio station. So glad you're here. Well, what are themed weekends? If you're new to programming, or if you're new to MusicMaster, or new to the entire thing, themed weekends consist of clocks. We're going to talk about some filters and song lists that employ specialty programming. For instance, I might have a love weekend, and every song at the top of the hour or throughout the hour has to have the word love or heart in the title. If I schedule that clock with those special items in there and filters over a weekend, then you could consider that a themed weekend. So what we're going to cover are two types or two methods, two techniques that you can use within MusicMaster to schedule your themed weekends. There's more than two, but the ones that I'm going to cover today I think are the most common. I think they're the most flexible, and I think they are the best ways to schedule your themed weekends. So there are two types that we're going to cover today. One is scheduling themed weekends using session filters. And session filters are filters that exist in the automatic scheduling process and within clocks. And that is one technique that we're going to cover today. The other technique that we're going to cover is just as flexible and maybe a little bit more customizable. And that is using song lists or saved lists in clocks. And so we'll cover making song lists and scheduling those throughout your clocks over a weekend to create a themed weekend that way. All right. So themed weekends using session filters. like I said, session filters are going to appear in tandem with clocks and with the automatic scheduling process. When you go to the automatic scheduler and you begin to automatically schedule a day, you'll be able to set your session filters there, and you'll know what I mean when I get to that. But that's what we're going to cover first. So in each instance, you'll want to set up your library to achieve the themed weekend. And so the first thing that I'm going to do over here in MusicMaster is I'm going to double-click just on a category. So I could get into library maintenance using, my main green note icon, or I can go to dataset library and I can query the library if I want to. For me, it's easier just to double-click on a category and quickly get to this button here and go to New Query. So there's a couple things that I want to do with my themed weekend. In fact, my weekend using session filters is going to be the weekend of love. And we're going to, play, I think, a song at the top of the hour that has to do, with love or hearts or anything romantic like that, right? So I'm going to query my library and see if I've even got the inventory to achieve this themed weekend. And so the way that I can query my library is by clicking on my black binocular icon there, which is going to pull up my library query. And if you sat in previous sessions, I think this query box by now is pretty familiar to you. You see it in several areas of the software. Anywhere you can search inside MusicMaster, this is what it tends to look like. On the left-hand side, I've got my categories listed. And on the right-hand side, I've got some filter boxes that I can employ here to go and find the songs that I want to use for my love weekend. So on the left-hand side, I'm going to just check off the categories that I'm going to use here. And these are my rotating categories with the music that I'm currently rotating at the station. I could certainly use the drop-down box here and go and choose music categories if I wanted to and find everything that I've got. But I found it easier just to kind of go and click the categories that I want to use in this instance. On the right-hand side, I've got my filters. And this is where I'm going to start filtering the library for the specifics, the things that I want to find. And in this case, we want to play songs that have love or heart in the title. So the first thing I'm going to do is tell MusicMaster what field I want to look in. In this case, it's title. Now I've got an operation drop-down box over here that allows me to choose several different kinds of operations. I can choose does not equal or does not contain or greater than or is blank or equals or does not contain or whatever. But contains is what we're going to use today because I want the title to contain something specific. In the third drop-down box, I'm going to type the word love. And then I'm going to choose add. Now I know I've done this correctly because I've got that full sentence there. Title contains love. I also want to do another one though. I want to do title contains hearts too. So I'll come down here and choose title again. Contains is what I want. And then heart. And I'll choose add again. So now I've got two things that I'm searching for. Now filter mode's really important here because I've got these two things I'm searching. If I have must match all here, then what I'm saying is go and look through the database and find titles that contain love and heart. But what I want to do is choose match at least one because I just wanted to find titles that have love or heart in the text there. So I've got this the way that I want it, and I'm not really going to sort by anything here. I'm not going to sort by title. I don't want to put it into any sort of specific order with artists or anything like that. So I'm going to leave these blank. But when you're doing your own queries, and if you want to sort, which we will here later on in the next example, you can use those sort keys. When I hit OK, this is going to bring up 29 songs in my database, and you'll see just by looking at the titles here that they either have love or heart in the title. And 29 is enough for me for this themed weekend that I'm going to do because I'm going to rotate my regular music for most of the hour, but at the top of the hour I'm going to play a nice legal ID that my production department made for me for this weekend, and then I'm going to play the song and just sort of establish the weekend, maybe do some giveaways, but I'm only going to do one song for that hour, and it's going to be at the top of the hour, and so 29 songs is enough for me. Now I'd like to add a keyword, and this is where we're doing the surgery on the database and adding a keyword to a column that we're going to use when we go in and employ our session filters when we automatically schedule the day. And so to do that, I want to bring in a field. Now, I've already brought the field in and created a layout, but I'll show you how you can do it. You'll choose this icon here, Show Hide Fields, and I would go and find a keyword field. In my case, I've got a theme keyword field. My themes field is a keyword multiple field in MusicMaster. And so I can add multiple keywords to this and use that to schedule my themed weekends. Your database might be slightly different. If you don't have a keyword field that you can use, you can certainly call one of your music scheduling consultants if you've got support and have a field like that added for you. But I'm going to just bring my themes over, and I'm going to get rid of my audio file so that this will make sense to everyone, and hit OK. So now I've got my title and my artist, and I've got this themes field, and I'm going to add a keywords to each song. Now, I could obviously go here and click, and I could choose the box and type in my keyword. I'm going to call it love, so that's generically what it is over the weekend, and hit OK. And now I've done ABC, the look of love, and I've given it a theme of love. I can do the same thing for B52s and click that box, get into my keyword entry, and type in love here as well. But that takes a while, and if you've got more than 29 songs, that's going to be some tedious work, right? So if I wanted to mass change this, I can, and I'm just going to right-click here on Themes. I'm going to go to Mass Changer, and I want to make sure that my target field is correct, so Themes, that's what I want to work with, and my operation is not going to be Search and Replace. I've got several different choices here, and the one that I want to choose is Add a Specific Keyword, because that's going to add something specific to every one of these songs. And the keyword that I want to add is love. If I want to confirm each change, I can, and I can choose Begin. I've already got love for ABC, so I don't want to update that, and I've already got love for the B52s, but everything else is blank, so I'll just choose Yes to All, and there you go. So now I've quickly gone through and themed a section of my database with something that shares a commonality, which is love. And I've basically set up my library to, to be ready to schedule using session filters. So the next step in the process is to go and set up your clocks. And so I'm going to go to my main clock icon here at the top. And I'm going to show you how I went about, creating my themed weekend clock. I've got two clocks that I typically use here, my AA and my AB clock. And so I want to copy, and I'll just call this something here. So I copied my clock there. I hit copy, and it brought up my format clock identification. I chose a new clock ID for it, and I gave it a new description. And when I hit OK, I'm going to have my new clock there. And now I can go and edit that by highlighting it and choosing Edit. So I told you at the beginning of this example that I was only going to do one element in the clock, and the rest of the hour was going to be normal, my normal programming. So really just the first element after the top of the hour ID is the one that I'm going to change, and it's going to be this element here, power, at position 2. And in this case, I want to pull from Ds, Rs, Gs, and Ps, all of my rotating categories, because I know that my music is, my music that follows this theme exists throughout these categories. And so for this example, I'm going to use what's called a combo field. And so I'm going to change my fixed position to a combo field. And I'm going to tell MusicMaster that I want to pull from Ds, Rs, Gs, and Ps. And so I've put check marks next to those categories in my category list here in my Details tab of the combo element. Now here's the real meat and potatoes. Here's the kicker of it. I'm going to go over to Filters here. And you might be thinking, well, I guess we got to set some filters up here. We don't. That's a clock filter. Okay? So that's a filter that's going to exist in the clock. What I'm going to do is apply what's called a session filter, and that's down here at the bottom. And I'm going to call this session filter 1 and put a check mark next to that. And then I'm going to hit OK. And that's it. So I've changed my AA clock, and I've copied it. I've called it SS for themes. And I've gone in and I've changed the first element, and I've given it a combo position where I can pull from multiple categories. And then I've said I want to apply a session filter to this. And this will make more sense once we get further into the process here, but this is how you set your clocks up for these session filters. You want to make sure that in that session filters tab, I'll just pull this up again. You want to make sure that in that filters tab, the apply session filter has been checked off. Okay? So there you have it. And now I can save. And then I can go and do my other clocks. If I've got other clocks that exist throughout the weekend, I can go and do those and set them up the same way. So I'm going to go back to my format clock maintenance screen. And I'm going to come over here and go to assignments. Now I've sort of set one up here that I can show you. And I'm going to highlight my themed grid and choose edit. Now I've got, you know, basically my normal grid here. And I've set my themed weekend clock down here for Saturday and Sunday. And so I've highlighted that, and then I went and chose my clock, and I added that in, and then I chose to save. I don't want to make this grid active, though, and I'll show you why. So I'm done here. I'm done with my assignment grids. I've assigned my specialty clocks to a grid that I've chosen to call themes. And now I want to go and use something I think is really cool in MusicMaster. It's called a format scheduler. And so I'm going to go to my format clocks maintenance screen again. And I've got this button down here called format scheduler. When I click that, it's going to give me this nice calendar here, and we're going to start with May. And I'm going to go down and show you sort of a blank weekend where I might be able to add this themed weekend in. Here I've got the 16th, and if I wanted to go in and say, yeah, you know, on the 16th I want to put my AF clock here. I want to add it at 12 o'clock, and so I'm going to go down and choose it here and find my SS themes, and then I'm going to do the same thing with 1 o'clock and go down and find my theme and put that in there. And you can certainly do it by hand if you want to. But the reason I put it into an assignment grid is because I feel like it's a little bit easier and it takes less keystrokes, you know, to assign these weekend clocks to this weekend by putting it into an assignment grid that I just simply copied and added a couple of clocks into. And now I can come to the 16th and I can right-click and I can say, I want to assign a specific grid to this date, and I want it to be my themed grid. And I'm going to do the same thing for the 17th. I'm going to assign a specific grid to the date and choose my themed grid. Okay? And so what that's done is it said, okay, well, we'll look at this assignment grid. Oh, I see. On Saturday, we've got this clock that we schedule. It's a themed clock. And so I've basically, you know, saved myself some keystrokes by just assigning the assignment grid to those days. And the cool thing about the format scheduler is it's really sort of a set it and forget it. The only thing that you're going to need to remember is when you're doing your themed weekends. Because you've set these sort of, you know, positions, these combo positions like I had in that clock, where I'm saying, look, this is a session filter. This second element in the clock is a session filter. When you see the value that I've put into the session filter, I want you to match that. I want you to fill that position with what I've told you to fill it with. And so it's a nice, you know, flexible clock that can be used for other themes and other weekends. And that's what I've done here. I've gone in and I've scheduled a theme weekend for the 16th and the 17th. I can go down here and skip this weekend if I don't have a themed weekend this week, and I can do the same thing for the 30th and 31st. Okay? So now I've basically kept my rotating assignment grid, the one that I normally use, and then I've just gone in and scheduled these themed weekends when they're going to happen. And so that's an easy way of just keeping this, sort of set up ready to go in the event that you've got a themed weekend. Or maybe your sales department comes in on Thursday and says, hey, can we do this and get a promo out today, which typically happens. So once you're done, you'll hit save, and you'll have saved the format scheduler. All right, so what we've done is we set up the library so far. We went and we themed some songs. We went and created a clock that is going to use a session filter, which you're going to see here in just a second. And then we've gone and we've assigned that to an assignment grid, and we've assigned the assignment grid to the format scheduler. So we scheduled these weekends. And we can use any theme we want. In this case, we're going to use love, but if you theme your entire library, you're going to be able to use pretty much any theme you want to. So the next step is to go to the rule tree. This is an important step here, and I don't want you to miss it because this is key in getting your session filters to work. I want to go and put a rule here in my all categories because I want it to govern every one of these categories that I've got scheduling. And I want to put it in my unbreakable folder because I want it to be an unbreakable rule. Here's the rule you're going to be looking for. It's in Format Clock Rules on the right-hand side of this, on the right-hand side under Available Rule Types in the rule tree, and it's all the way at the bottom. If I hit the plus sign here, I'm going to find the rule that I want. Scheduling Session Filter 1. Because remember in my clock I said apply Session Filter 1 to this element. So here's my rule for that. And so I'm going to click and drag this over and put that into my All Categories folder, and I get this nice message. Record scheduled in this element must satisfy Scheduling Session Filter 1 if it's currently defined. If it's not defined, it's just going to schedule the combo position with all of those categories in there. It's going to find the best available song. But if the session filter is employed, if it's defined, then it's going to put what I want it to put in there. So I'm going to hit OK. And now I've taken care of my rule tree. But make a strong note of that because we get a lot of phone calls like that where you'll have session filters lined up, you've got everything themed, you're thinking it's going to be smoking when you schedule, and then you don't get anything right. And it's typically because this rule is not applied. Or it's not applied to the right categories. All right? So very important. And now it's just a matter of going and setting up the auto schedule. So I'm going to go to my scheduling icon here, my scheduler, and pull up my calendar. And here is where I'm going to go and automatically schedule a day. And so we're going to automatically schedule Saturday. And when I hit OK, it's going to bring up my automatic scheduler screen, and I just want to double check a few things. First of all, I know I'm going to schedule Saturday, and I'm going to schedule 12 a.m. to 11 p.m. I also know that all my categories are checked off. It's very important. If they're not checked, they won't schedule. And here's a nice little message I've got. Session filters are active. That means that the clocks that I'm going to schedule here have session filters in them. MusicMaster is telling me that they're active. I also know I have the rule applied. So here's where the magic happens. I'm going to go over here to the filters screen. And then I've already set this up, so I'm going to delete that and show you how I did it. I've got my drop-down box here, which says Session Filter 1. But if I had other session filters, 2 or 3, then I can set those up as well. You can set up multiple filters. But in this case, we only used Session Filter 1, and we applied that rule to the rule tree. So I've got Session Filter 1 chosen here, and now I want to go and do what? Well, I want to go and tell it that when I see a session filter in a clock, the theme needs to contain love. And I can choose Add there. And then it's just like any other filter. If the sentence is right, then you've got it correct. And that's it. Then I can hit OK, and MusicMaster is going to go through my assignment grid that's scheduled through the Format Scheduler, and it's going to see that the second element of that clock is a session filter. And it looks at the session filter and says, oh, okay, well, themes have to contain love, so I need to go find one of those 29 songs that Drew set up in his library. And that's how it's going to happen. It goes and schedules that. Now, consider this a cooking show now. I prepared the pot roast yesterday, and today I showed you how to prepare it, and then we went to break, and 2 minutes later we came back, and I magically had this, cooked pot roast that should have been in the oven for 3 hours. I'm going to hit cancel here and show you what happened. I'm going back to my scheduler icon, and I'm going to go to the schedule editor because I scheduled Saturday already, and I did that for timing purposes because I didn't think that we would want to sit here for a minute and watch the schedule. I'll just show you how nice it works. You see I've got the Power of Love at the top of the hour at 12 o'clock. If I go to 1 o'clock, You Can't Hurry Love. Nice themed weekend here. 2 o'clock, Why Can't This Be Love? I'll go to 3 a.m. Looking for a New Love. So all of my love songs scheduled as the second element in my clocks because I used that session filter. And so I've got this great themed weekend that I didn't have to do by hand. And how boring can that be to go and schedule those things by hand? And you don't have to do that. MusicMaster will do it for you, and it will follow your rules, make sure artists are separated from one another and so on. So that's how you schedule using session filters. And yeah, I just want to note before we move on that you can go through and create as many themes as you want, and then use that flexible clock every time you have a themed weekend. The clock never changes. The session filter is what changes. Okay, and so you can use that every week if you want to schedule a different theme without having to make all this surgery in your database and having to go through and creating these clocks and assigning them to assignment grids and making them active and so on. If you use the techniques that I just showed you, it's going to make it a lot faster and a lot more flexible for you so that you can easily do a themed weekend later on when you have other themes to work with. Right now I'm going to change databases, and we're going to talk about another way to schedule themed weekends. And so let me get my windows closed here, and then we'll go and open up a similar database that I wanted to use for this particular technique in scheduling themed weekends. So this next one is scheduling themed weekends using song lists. Well, what are song lists in MusicMaster? Well, they're lists of songs that you've got in your library, and you can make as many as you want. You make them using the song list editor, and then you can schedule using those song lists. Song lists are great for countdowns. They're great for scheduling countdowns on the fly. They're great for scheduling themed weekends. Great for those things like an A to Z weekend or the top 100 countdown at the end of the year and so on. So if you've never done those kinds of things in MusicMaster, this will be really handy for you because I think you'll get a lot out of it. So setting up a song list, how do you do that? Well, the easiest way to do it is to come to Dataset, Library, Song List Editor. I'll do that again. Dataset, Library, Song List Editor. Okay? This is what the Song List Editor looks like. On the left-hand side, I've got my song list contents, which is the songs that are going to be in my song list. And on the right-hand side, I've got library search results where I can go and query the library for certain things. And so I might query the library and say, hey, go find me a song list that has love in all of the titles of them, or hearts, or whatever. In this case, we're going to do an A to Z weekend, because I know a lot of you, especially if you program rock stations, a lot of them do that. And A to Z weekends are pretty popular, especially around Memorial Day and things like that. So we're going to do an A to Z weekend and see how that looks. So I'm going to go first and look at a library search. I want to go and search the library, and I want to look at all of my songs that I've got in the database. So here's our friendly library query box. Obviously, I'm going just to choose the categories that I rotate. No Christmas music involved here for Memorial Day. And I'm not going to search for any sort of specific thing. I really just want to see all of the songs. I want to see them sorted in a specific way. And so we'll do a sort key for this one, but we're not going to be filtering for anything specific, although you could. If you wanted to create a song list that was all Journey songs, for instance, then you could do that. And have a Journey weekend if you wanted to, and use a song list for that. But in this case, we're going to do that A to Z weekend. So I've checked off all of my categories here, and then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say, I want you to sort this by title. And so that's just going to sort everything by title for me. It's going to throw all of the songs that I've got in the database, and it's going to sort it by title and create my A to Z list. When I hit OK, I'm going to get my my list here. And so I can, move this over here by choosing to add all songs and get all this in. And so I've got this sorted list. Now look, I've got my title here. And I just dyed in my arms and move that down to the I's if I want to. It shows the parentheses here for this. 8675309 is going to come first because it's a number. And then I've got my A's and my B's and so on. So I've created this A to Z weekend. And so yeah, I can move the cutting crew down if I want to my I's. Or I can remove it all together, whatever I want to do with that song. And so I can come down and say, okay, well, let me just double check my list here, make sure everything's nice and in alphabetical order for an A to Z weekend. And just double check that list. I can find out how many songs I've got in the list and the length of time it's going to take to play those. That's helpful when you are setting up your clocks. Now, if I wasn't doing an A to Z weekend, I just want to make a note of this since we're in the song list editor. If I was doing some sort of other weekend, maybe that love weekend where I was creating a saved list, I might want to optimize that list. If I've got a jumbled list of artists and titles, I might want to optimize that. Probably would. To make sure that that list is nice and all of the artists are as far away from themselves as they can be. Or maybe I want all of my songs to be sorted by rest. And so I can choose this icon right here. And that's going to shuffle or sort any song that I've got in the list. When I click this, I'll show you a couple of things. I like to optimize by field. It's one of my favorite things to do when I'm optimizing a category or a song list because it can take whatever field I tell it to and optimize that. Get it as far away from itself as it can. And so I could optimize by artist. I'm not going to do it for this A to Z weekend, but if I had some sort of jumbled list, then I would do that, to kind of make it a nicer, more effective list when I schedule. So it doesn't really break any rules, I don't hear the same artists in the same hour, that kind of thing. There are other things that I could do here in this arrangement. I can sort it by rest. I can come up here and fully shuffle the song list. I can shuffle a percent back and so on. You can play around with some of these functions and see what works best for you. I just wanted to show you that because I know some of you aren't going to be doing these A to Z weekends. You're going to be doing something that's a little bit more similar to a themed weekend that we did earlier. The other thing I'd like to show you here too is that if I've got this cutting crew record, I can certainly take that out. I can remove that song by choosing this icon here in the middle. It's called Remove Selected Song. The other thing I could do is say, I want to keep Tommy in here, but I would really like to start with Nina. So I'm going to come down and highlight Nina, and then I'm going to choose this icon here, set the list pointer to the selected song. When I click on that, now when I go to schedule my saved song list clock, it'll start with this song here. So we'll move it back up to Tommy. Just wanted to show you that. That's something that you might be able to play around with too. Might be helpful for you when you're scheduling this. Once I'm happy with the song list, I'm just going to save it. I've already got my A to Z list here, but I'll hit OK and overwrite that for you. And that's it. That's setting up the song list and getting it ready to schedule. So I'm going to close my song list editor and show you that if you were sitting in on a previous session, you would have known that song lists, once you're done with them and once you've created them, they also exist down here in the info bar at the bottom in this button here. And so I could actually go through and double click on my A to Z list, and I can look inside library maintenance at the songs that I've prepared in this list and the order in which I prepared them. 218 songs in my list. So just to let you know that you can go through and create a new song list from here, but you can also access those song lists here and look at them within library maintenance. And maybe make some changes to a few fields if you need to. So once we set up the song list, then we go through the next step in the process, which is setting up clocks. So I'm going to go to my clock icon, and I'm going to show you how to create a new clock based on, that uses or employs saved list elements. So I'm going to choose new, and I'm going to call this, just give it a clock ID, and call it, already got one in there called save list, so I'll call it save list 2. When I hit OK, it's going to take me directly to my blank clock. And so I wanted to show you how to set up a saved list, and then we'll go look at a clock that I've already created that uses that. So you always start with the element type column, because MusicMaster needs you to tell it what kind of element we're putting in here. And so I'm going to use the drop-down box here and choose to use a saved list. When I click on that, my element properties box comes up, and MusicMaster asks me to identify or to define a few things. Now this is going to import songs from the song list. This is what this element does, and there's a couple of things that we could do when we're dealing with the particular song list that we're going to be importing. There's a recent addition here to MusicMaster for Windows I really love. It's called Use Session List, and I'll describe what that is or show you what it is here in just a little bit. That's what we're going to use. But if you wanted to, inside this clock, pull from a specific list, you can. Use the drop-down box and go and choose whatever specific list you want to pull from. But what that means is that anytime the clock rotates, that list is what's going to be pulled from. And so the flexibility lies within Use Session List, and this will make more sense to you here in just a second. So Use Session List is what you want to use here to keep this nice and flexible so that you can use it on multiple weekends. Down here I've got some import options, and this is going to import the next song in the list, which is what I want. But you could import the first song only. You could import a random song from the list. You can import a song at, say, position 50. Import the 50th song in the list. That's what you say here. You can import multiple songs. I've done that for importing a quick countdown. And then you can import songs with a minimum time. In this case, we're just going to import the next song, though. And that's it. I'm just going to hit OK. Now I've got a saved list that uses a session song list and pulls the next song. So while I'm building this clock, I can go and clone this element. Now I've got this element. I want it to be the same element every time I see it, and so there's no changes. I can just hit the clone element icon here at the top and clone that. So 13 or 14 songs in the hour. And then I can go and build around it. I've got these nice A to Z liner. I've got this nice A to Z liner category. So I can go and insert this, maybe put a legal ID or an A to Z liner, whatever I'm going to do at the top of the hour. And then I can come down here and maybe insert another category of liners. And then put in my stop sets, my traffic merges, whatever other elements you're going to need to run this specific clock. But, the song elements are taken care of here with this saved list. And then I would save it. So I'm going to show you a clock that I've already prepared. It's my AE clock. And I'm going to edit that. And this is what a prepared clock looks like with everything that it needs. I've got my rotating hour kickoff ID, my top of hour ID, and then I've got this session list element, this save list element. And I've got some rotating jingles that I've forced in. So I've got some forced elements and traffic elements and in and amongst my save list. Okay? And so the next step is going to be to save that. And then if I need to go and create other clocks, I can. I'm going to then go back to clock maintenance, and I'm going to go to my assignment grid and show you what I've done with my saved list weekend grid that I've created. And basically I copied grid 1, or my generic grid, which is my normal grid. And I can choose edit here and show you that my AE clock and my AF clock, which is another save list clock I've built, exist on Saturday and Sunday, and I could save them. Now this grid is active, and I'll go back and for the purposes of showing you the format scheduler again, I'm going to make the generic grid the active grid. And then I've got this saved list weekend grid that I can go and schedule within my format scheduler. So I'll just choose this format scheduler screen, brings up my familiar calendar, and then I can come here and previous to the session today, I went ahead and assigned this to this day. I'm going to remove this and show you how I did it. So here's my Saturday on the 2nd. My generic grid's going to rotate with this clock, but we want to schedule this weekend, this themed weekend here, and so I'm just going to right-click and choose to assign a specific grid to this day and assign that saved list weekend grid that I built. And I can do the same thing for Sunday, and so on. So I don't, again, have to change my active grid. I don't have to, constantly go in and change that to the active grid before I schedule a day. I just come into the format scheduler, and I just schedule the assignment grid for the day that I want it to appear, and it saves me keystrokes. Certainly there are going to be, reasons where you would come in and just put a couple of clocks in here to the format scheduler. But for our reason with this weekend grid, it's going to happen all weekend, so I just created a grid and assigned the grid to the dates. All right? And then when I hit save, I'm done. I've scheduled those clocks. So for saved lists and scheduling saved lists, there's really no rule for that. There's no session filter rule for saved lists. There's no clock filter I need to be really concerned with. I've just set up this clock, and I'm ready to schedule it because I've set up my lists as well, my A to Z weekend. So the next step is going to be to go to my scheduler, and we'll go to the automatic scheduler. We're going to schedule this second. So when I hit OK, it's going to pull up my automatic scheduler screen, and I'm going to make a few adjustments here. I'm going to make sure that I'm scheduling the right day, and I'm going to also make sure that my session list is chosen. So this is the meat and potatoes of it. This is where you tell it what session song list you're going to be using. Because in your clocks it says use session song list. That's what you choose from that drop-down box in the element. And you're saying, when I tell you what list to use in the automatic scheduler screen, use it. Use that list. That's what keeps it flexible. Because then I can create all sorts of other lists and have, 10, 20, 30 lists in my database, and then just go and schedule that list when I'm ready for whatever weekend I've got. So this is where you do it. You come down to session song list, and you say, okay, here's my drop-down box. I don't have a list chosen. It says none here. And I'm going to choose A to Z. If I already came in here and A to Z was already listed and I wanted to use the other love list that I've got, I could choose remove, and I can hit the drop-down box again and go put love in. In this case, we're going to use A to Z. What happens if you're there to the scheduling list and you're like, oh, I really want to double check that list before I start to schedule. I worked on it a couple of days ago. I just want to make sure it's right. We'll choose Edit. It goes right to the song list editor and pulls up that list for you. So you can go and make any sort of last-minute adjustments. Pretty cool. So now I'm ready. I'm going to take, this isn't going to matter, but I'm going to take my session filter out just to have that out. And then I'm going to hit OK. When I hit OK, it's going to go through and prepare the scheduling window for me, and it's going to load the clocks for that day. And then it's going to pull from that list, and it's going to start with Tommy Two-Tone, and it's going to begin scheduling that. And so I just wanted to show you that once it begins scheduling, boom, it's done. So it just goes and puts that list, and that's all we've got. So now I can go and look at my schedule, my log, and make sure that everything's okay. And there you have it. Tommy schedules first. And then I've got 99 left balloons. Addicted to Love. Against All Odds. All of my A's are there. I can go down and make sure that all of my B's look right. Yep, that all looks great. I can go to 1 a.m. and make sure this is scheduling correctly, and it is. So it just took that list and it imported the next song in the list when it reached a saved list element. So super easy way, because you'll get fast at making these song lists. You'll get really quick at going in and querying the library and coming up with commonalities and putting them into song lists and saving those lists. And then before you know it, you're going to have 10, 20, or 30 lists that you can use for these themed weekends. And you can make that grow and really come up with an extensive library of themed weekends that you can use, or specialty programming. So those are the two, I think, easiest ways to schedule themed weekends, using a session filter and using saved lists. There are others in MusicMaster. I think time permitting today, we wanted to maybe cover one more, but I don't think we're going to have the time for that. And I encourage you to call your music scheduling consultant to come up with some different ways. You can use kickoff categories in MusicMaster, for instance, to do that, to schedule themed weekends. You could certainly use special sets to schedule block weekends if you're going to do a block weekend. Special sets are typically used for twofers, but they could also be used for themed weekends. I felt like this was the most flexible, though, and one that you could, use, for multiple weekends. So I would encourage you to go through your database yourself first and think about some of the things that are common about it. Well, do I have a lot of songs with love in the title? I've got Memorial Day and the 4th of July coming up. What do my titles look for words like free or freedom or America or something like that? I can put a list together that pretty much covers 4th of July. And then, I think you'll come up with a few on your own. But I think your staff is going to have a lot of knowledge, too, on some things that you might have missed. And so you might think about gathering your staff around and talking about, some of the things that they might be able to find in your library that you hadn't thought of, that you can use for themed weekends. Because I think they'll be able to give you, some good ideas as well. Certainly they play the music a lot and know the library pretty well without seeing the software or the database. And then, once you have, all of these, sort of themes and saved lists put together, and you've got a database that is armed with a lot of themed weekends and saved lists, whichever one you decide to use, then I think you could go into your sales department and say, look, this is what I've come up with. I've got all sorts of these great themed weekends that we can use. I've got themed weekends that deal with years, decades, types of music, holidays. There's a ton of things that you can do to theme your songs or to create saved lists from. And then going into the sales department and saying, look, let's go and get a sponsor for this and create some revenue for the station for the weekends. So we've got about 10 more minutes, and so you might sit down with your own data and take a look at it initially and come up with these themes. Certainly if you have any questions, I know a lot of you have support with us, and so I encourage you to call Paul or Marianne or Aaron or myself or anyone that you've got support with and ask questions, and we will certainly be glad to help you, set up these themed weekends. If you miss a step or you get through it and you've almost got it right, but one thing's missing, we'll be able to identify what that issue is and get you squared away pretty quick so that you can, begin scheduling these themed weekends on your own. And on that note, I'm going to pass it back to Mark, and I thank you very much for sitting with me today and listening to the webinar on themed weekends.
Drew, very nice. Excellent presentation. I hope everyone got something out of that and has the wheels spinning a little bit as to what they can do in their weekends with MusicMaster. Once again, next week, you need to go to the website to sign up for next week's session if you want to attend the next 2 weeks, actually. are still posted on the website, and we'll be adding to that list. On the 15th, we're doing using audio files in MusicMaster. And on the 22nd, it'll be how to evaluate an inherited database, which will probably also be a good exercise on just reviewing your database as well. So on that note, we'll talk to you again next week. Make sure you register. And by all means, like Drew said, if you have any questions about MusicMaster or anything that was shown here today, by all means, contact your music scheduling consultant. Reach out to us. We're here to help. We want to make your life easier, not more difficult. So on that note, we'll talk to you again next week. Thank you very much.